Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll be doing a review of the Hit and Move Air Armor Precision Headgear. So stay tuned. Hey guys, Carlo here. Today I'm doing a review of the Hit and Move Air Armor Precision Headgear. This retails for $259 on the Hit and Move website. You can get it in two different colorways, all black like I have here, as well as all white. It also comes in two different sizes. If the circumference of your head is smaller than 22.5 inches around your head, they recommend getting the small medium, which is what I have here. If it's larger than 22.5 inches, then they recommend getting the large XL. Now, material-wise, the exterior of this headgear is made of genuine leather. The interior liner is a synthetic kind of rubberized smooth liner, and it's the same type of material that Phenom Boxing uses in their headgears as well. And quite frankly, it's my favorite material for a headgear, period. Not just for Hit, Move, or Phenom, but any headgear. I recommend this type of liner in that headgear. Now, the reason I say that is, for example, Rival uses a micro suede liner in their headgear, and I love that micro suede. It's super comfortable, soft against your skin, just a very comfortable experience. That micro suede also does a really good job of kind of gripping onto your skin. So if you take a shot, the headgear doesn't shift too much, and you don't have to continue to like use your glove to readjust the headgear. The drawback with the micro suede or any of those cloth liners is that oftentimes they tend to retain moisture and sweat more. So because of that, if you don't air that headgear out properly, it's going to get funky real quickly, especially if you're not disciplined with airing out your headgear, or if you're one of those people that gets done sparring, you throw it directly into your duffel bag, you zip your bag up and you throw it in the back of the trunk of your car, and you don't use that headgear again for another couple of days. All that bacteria is building up on the inside of the headgear. So that's kind of the drawback with cloth or any of those suede type liners. And then you have headgears like Reyes, where the entire headgear, including the inside, is leather. So there's no change in the liner material. And because of that, when you sweat, if you take a shot, typically those kind of headgears, because they're smooth on the inside, will shift more than others. They don't retain sweat, like a cloth liner does, but they tend to shift around more. So to me, this liner is kind of the best of both worlds. You don't get the moisture retention that you would with like a microfiber or micro suede or a cloth liner, but you also don't have where it's completely smooth and slick on the inside, where you don't have any grip against your skin like a Reyes headgear where it's just leather. So you kind of get best of both worlds. And in my opinion, I have this in my Phenom headgear, and it's by far my favorite. It's really smooth, very comfortable, and I'm glad that Hit and Move decided to use this on their headgear as well. But it's probably the best type of material. And again, I don't know what the technical word for this is. Maybe you guys know what it is, and you guys can comment down below on what this material is. But probably the best so far that I've used at any headgear. So you also have just kind of the Hit and Move logo on the inside of the headgear. I believe this headgear, there's no tags on here, but I believe, just like their gloves, this is made in Pakistan. And another great feature about the headgear is that the crown lace-up adjustment, and it has a rear lace-up adjustment. If you guys have seen any of my headgear videos in the past, you guys probably already know that I hate Velcro. I just don't think Velcro does the same in terms of getting that real custom tight fit that you get with a traditional lace-up headgear. And this is tried and true, right? Headgears have been lace-up forever now, for decades. And I don't really think there's any other system currently that I can think of that works better in terms of being able to get the headgear to fit properly and to fit comfortably and snug. To me, just lace-ups is the way to go. The other good thing about the lace-up is that once you have, assuming you're the only one using this headgear, once you have the top crown and the rear lace adjustment adjusted to your head size, you can essentially tape these off. And I've seen some pros do it where they'll tape off the laces because it's already adjusted to their size. And then from there, all you have to do is slip the headgear on, put on the chin strap or the chin buckle, and you're good to go. So I definitely like the fact that they went with the traditional lace-up closure rather than Velcro. You do have the lace loop holes at the very top of the crown, and then the back, again, you just have that lace-up system. So right there. Now, the big one, The most obvious aesthetic about this is going to be the placement of the foam padding. Now, before this headgear was released, Hit Move really gained a lot of steam with their turtle mitts, right? I'm sure I've done a review on their turtle mitts, but the turtle mitts are basically their coaching, their punch mitts that they use. And you can see that they kind of took the design cues and some of that technology, I guess if you want to call it, and implemented it in this headgear. So essentially what it is you have little pockets of extra cushioning around the headgear. Now, when I first saw the headgear, I wasn't really a fan, and it's still taking me a while to kind of get used to the way it looks, because this kind of reminds me of like one of the old 1940 football helmets or like an old rugby helmet, the way it looks. And it's aesthetics, right? So it's to each their own. It's really hard to say. Not, one person might think it looks ugly as hell and somebody else might think it looks pretty good. But compare this to like your traditional Japanese style headgear like Winning and Phenom, and there's so many headgears. Top Boxer, Rival makes headgears. It doesn't have that traditional look, and nor is it supposed to have that look, right? It's kind of its own thing, but it does take a little bit of getting used to, mainly because this upper forehead portion is thinner and also doesn't have the same level of thickness and depth as the other headgear. So it kind of doesn't look full, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but when you have like the FG 2900 on and some of the other headgears that are inspired by the Winning headgear, it just has more of a complete look, where this one, again, has a little bit more of a slimmer profile, and that's kind of the intention behind this headgear. And when Hit Move started advertising this and marketing this headgear, basically they were saying that this is the lightest, as well as the slimmest, as well as the most protective, or one of the most protective headgears on the market. And when I saw that, I was, like I usually am, I'm pretty skeptical, not even just about this, but just any gear out there that comes out. I mean, you guys have seen my videos of like the Abnick Speed Simulator, that one where I go like that with my hand and it's supposed to increase your punching speed. I also have done like the InLab Pro X, the push-up ones where you put the thing between your knuckles and you do push-ups, and it's supposed to help with your punching power. So I tried like a ton of devices over the years, other equipment, gloves, and there's always some new innovative concept that's being brought to boxing, especially when it comes to the equipment. And you kind of like raise your eyebrow. You're like, okay, they're saying all these are making claims, but is that really true? And how do I even measure that, right? Like, how do I even verify that that's even true, right? I mean, it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to actually validate that and say that it's true. So essentially they have all of these extra cushion paddings. You have one right here on the forehead that says Hit and Move right there, and they're all stitched in. And then again, it's kind of like the turtle mitts. You have two right here, kind of on the temple, one on the outer edge of the temple, and then you also have the cheek protectors as well. I wouldn't necessarily say that these are raised, because you can see the tips of the cheek protectors are the same thickness as the inner portion of the cheek protectors. Winnings, on the other hand, has this little lip at the very tip right here that extends out even more. And essentially what they did that for is to give you just a little bit more protection for your nose for your support. So if you take a punch straight on, I guess that raised portion was supposed to kind of, I guess, lessen the blow and give you a little bit more cushioning. So you have that. The padding on here, I'd say, is about a hair over, maybe 1.25 inches of firm density foam on the cheek protectors on both sides. It also says Hit and Move right there. The forehead is about 2 inches of varying thickness. I would say the base thickness level, I'd say, is maybe about 1 inch, and then it increases to like 1.5 inches to 2 inches, just depending on that extra piece of foam that is extended out. I'm trying to see if I can show you guys visually how that looks. So you have that. You also have an extra piece right here on the lower portion where your jaw is at. So you have that layer right here, and that kind of sits on your jaw, and that's going to be really important for your chin, especially if you get caught with the hook, or even a straight punch and you're just sideways and you get caught with it. That's essentially what this piece of foam padding does on both sides. So you have that extra piece right there, and you also have your traditional ear donuts. You're about about 1 inch of foam padding. You have the crossbar right there, so nothing crazy in terms of the air donuts. And then on the back, again, you'll notice that you have just a layer of padding right here. It's just this vertical piece, and the base layer, again, I'd say is about 3/4 of an inch, where this extra piece right here adds about 1 inch of padding, and then you have just the laces. So the entire headgear has padding throughout the entire headgear. There's just particular sections on the headgear, or parts on the headgear, where they strategically basically place extra cushioning. And that's essentially where you get your weight savings from, right? So when I put this headgear on the scale, they came in at 9 ounces. So I think up to date at this point in time, I think this is the lightest headgear I've used so far. And compared to Winning, I think the Winning FG29, the synthetic Winning headgear, is I think 10 to 11 ounces. At least Winning USA claims that their 29 is 10 ounces. So this is essentially an ounce lighter than the Winning, and definitely by far lighter than a lot of headgears. So, and again, that has a lot to do with just the amount of material they reduced using it and putting cushioning really where you need it, and not having just cushioning throughout the entire headgear, and basically reduce bulk. The other good thing about that is that if you're a defensive fighter, if you're somebody that is slick and likes to use a lot of head movement, you'll really love this headgear. And the reason I say that is, me stylistically, I'm more of a boxer. I like to move. I like to use my defense. I try to counter. I'm not much of a come forward type fighter, even though I can. And this is the type of headgear that's really good for people that like to move and box, because you're essentially less of a target, right? The headgear is not as bulky and thick, and yes, it's just by a small margin, but the weight of the headgear being lighter also gives you more mobility. You feel like it's basically there's nothing on your head when you're moving it, so it's easier for you to move your head just from a weight perspective. But just this overall size and thickness of the headgear, being that it's a slimmer profile headgear, also lends to being able to move your head and just being slicker with your defense. So I definitely like that when it comes to the type of boxing style you are going with. And to me, that really helps for those of you that are more of a defensive-minded boxer. Now, not to say that if somebody is more of an offensive slugger that wants to come forward and just beat the hell out of you, that they can't use this either, because I'm going to get to the actual level of protection. So that's the next thing, right? That was the next kind of claim, that this headgear was either comparable or maybe a little bit better than its counterparts. So that was another thing that I was like, okay, really hard to say, because there's a lot of variables when you say that it's better, right? Because one, who are you getting punched by? It depends on the person that's punching you, because some people punch harder than others. It's just a known fact. The other thing is, what kind of gloves are they wearing, right? So there has to be consistency there. So I wanted to get to that, and I did talk to the owner of Hit and Move, Ozzy, about that, and said, hey man, these are genuine questions that I have, because if you're saying one thing, then to me, like, you have to have data that backs it up. You can't just say, oh yeah, it's done this, and we were at Virginia Tech and we had a dummy's head on this thing and we hit it, and that's great for the camera, but what actual data you have to show that? And then ultimately, it really boils down to you, right? When you wear it, how do you feel? Is it comfortable on your head? After you got done using it, were you still getting headaches? Does your head still hurt, and does it feel bruised, or does your head still have a little bit of aching after you're done compared to previous headgears? Really, that's for you guys to determine individually, because not everybody's the same, right? We're all different in the way we feel. So that's one thing I also wanted to mention with that. So let me go ahead and slide this headgear on. And fitment wise, I was a little concerned because I got this in small medium. I wanted something that fit properly, that was snug. Headgears are kind of funny sometimes, right? Because they give you the circumference which you're supposed to go by, 22.5. So if you're above that, you're a large. If you're below 22.5, you're a small medium, right? Well, typically I consider myself I have a large head, at least when it comes to headgears. And I usually get a large, but talking to Ozzy, he was like, you know what, you should go with a small medium. I think it'll fit you better just based on the proportions. I'm glad that I did. So if you are somebody that has a larger head, anywhere around a 23 to 23.5 circumference, the small medium may fit you just as good, and it might be just a snugger fit. The other thing you have to keep in mind is that if it's too big, then the cheek protectors will over protrude, which I hate. Sometimes you get cheek protectors that are just too big, and what happens is the tips will compress on your nostrils, and it's just annoying to wear. So the cheek protectors right here, they do their job and they lay around on my cheekbones the way they should, but they don't compress my nose into place. So in terms of the padding over my head and my temple, it feels good, it's comfortable. The placement of the ear openings where the ear donuts are perfect. So in terms of the actual head, I guess ergonomics or the way the headgear is created, it's properly sized, right? It doesn't feel like the ears are too far back or too far forward, and then the cheek protectors are too wide out or too far in, and the temple and the forehead area is just a weird. So in terms of the sizing, everything is sized nicely. The laces, again, I already been using this, so the laces are tied to the shape of my head. The top crown adjustment is going to be for the depth of the headgear, so how far you want it to sit down on your head. The rear lace adjustment is going to be for the circumference, or for basically the tightness around your head. So just those are two things that you have to keep in mind. And then you also have the adjustable chin strap with the quick clip. And I think a lot more companies are going with this female to male clip at the bottom. It's just so much easier to use. You know, Winning was one of the original companies. A lot of companies were using the old belt buckle method with the little pin at the end, or they're using Velcro, which I'm not a fan of. So they use a quick clip on here, which is really good. It's a good position too. So it's right under my chin. I hate when headgear chin straps are under, right on my throat, like against my Adam's apple, because when you tuck your chin in, that chin strap will jab right into your throat. So you get really full mobility with your head and your neck with this headgear on. It's tapered in the back where the neck is at too, so you don't have to worry about the back of the headgear bumping into your neck or your shoulders. So excellent in terms of mobility. You can see that the cheek protectors do a pretty good job. If you take a straight on shot, yes, you will get hit in the nose, and yes, it'll probably still hurt. The cheek protectors just are there to reduce the impact. And one, to reduce the impact, and two, if you were to clash heads with your sparring partner, this right here is to prevent you from getting any cuts or bruises or break your orbital bone in any way. So that's essentially the original intention of headgear, right? Is to prevent cuts and any type of bruising, cuts, especially coming up to a fight. If you're a pro and you have a fight coming up, you don't want to jeopardize that by getting injured during sparring. So again, the cheek protectors do a really good job of reducing the blow, but they're not 100% foolproof. If you take a straight on shot, the punch will still get through and you still will get hit in the nose, so do keep that in mind. In terms of the peripheral vision, it's really, really good. I like the fact that the horizontal cutout is far out, so I get good visibility both to my left and to my right. The vertical vision is good as well, like looking up and looking down. I can see the cheek protectors, like as you would with any cheek protector style headgear. For peripheral vision, you can see that. But it's not like a face saver or a face bar headgear where you have this gigantic bar inhibiting your vision, especially from uppercuts or strikes that are coming upwards to your face. So the cheek protectors do their job, but they're not completely obstructing your vision like a face saver would, where you have this huge bar in the front and it's going to be just harder to see it. The other thing I hate about face bar headgears is if somebody hits you flush with a nice uppercut, it will lift your head up as well, because that bar will pull on the headgear and it'll force your head up. And if they're really good and they know what they're doing, they're going to follow up with another shot. And next thing you know, you're getting hit with another shot too. So that's the other drawback with the face bar headgear, but that's for another conversation anyhow. So yeah, overall feels good. Vision feels good. Liner is nice and comfortable. Ears are where they're supposed to be. Everything feels really good. After I use this headgear, my head did get sore, like it did with my other headgears I've used in the past. My Phenoms, I've used so many headgears. My ringside ultralight headgear. I've used so many headgears, and my head always gets sore. So, in terms of, if you're asking, well, is my head going to still feel the same after? My personal experience is my head will still sore. You're still going to get the, I guess, kinetic energy, if you want to call it, that's being transferred from whoever's punching you into your head, right? So it's not a foolproof system, and no headgear is, right? So that's always been kind of the debate, with headgear. And it's kind of always gone back to that, headgears are really meant for cuts, bruising, and just basically protecting your your face against head clashes. And if you're wondering, yes, I still get a bit of, I wouldn't say bruising, but a bit of soreness around my head from when I spar with this headgear compared to others. I don't know if it's much more or much less. To me, when my head's sore, my head is sore. I don't sit there and gauge, okay, it's 10% on this side and hit 20%. But to answer your question, if you guys are wondering, will your head still get sore? It still does. Now that brings on to my next data point, I guess you want to call it. So the next thing was talking to Ozzy about the whole, the actual reduction in force against your head. And when I was talking to him, I'm just pulling this up real quick. I say, well, what do you have to actually like back up the data or what your claims are with the headgear? And he basically said that this headgear slightly outperforms the competitor, or is at least comparable, results-wise, to a Japanese or Mexican or an American style headgear. And then he actually showed me some data. I talked to him about the data. I can't share that with you guys, obviously, for privacy reasons, but he did share data with me, and we went over the numbers. And going through the data, I can tell you this, that there was a couple things that they did measure. One was low, moderate, and high force. So if you guys have seen like their advertising videos, it shows like a dummy head with a headgear on it, and there's like this thing, like a fake, I guess like glove, or I can't remember, but like a robotic hand punching it. Well, they did different force levels, and the glove that they used was a 12-ounce hit and move glove. So they used the same 12-ounce glove for all the measurements. That way it was the same weight. It was always consistent for each test they did. So they did low, moderate, and high. And they did different sections. So they essentially like rotated the headgear around and let it get hit on different sections. So they had it done on the front, or where is it at? Yeah, the front, which would be here, the temple, which is towards the outside side of your forehead, and the chin, so down here. So essentially the chin, the front, and the temple. So those are basically kind of like the main areas that you're typically going to get punched. Yes, you're going to get punched on the side of the head, but it's just not going to be as frequent as it would be essentially in this whole front area. So your forehead, your temple, and obviously your nose area where your cheek is at. And the data was actually kind of surprising in some respects, that the temple actually was probably, I wouldn't say the weak spot, was the area where it may not have done as good as some of the other headgears. Now, they did compare this to a Japanese, I don't know, I'm assuming winning, and a Mexican style headgear and an American style headgear as well. They had a couple of different headgears they used for this testing. But in some cases, the temple didn't do as well as some of the headgears, but the front did, as well as the chin did, either comparable or moderately better than some of the other headgear. So take that for what you want, take that for what it is. I think that this headgear will excel in certain areas, mainly in the front and the chin area right here. But again, it really boils down to variables, right? Who's punching you? Because you could have all that data set up. And at the end of the day, it really boils down to how you feel with this headgear on. I do like the fact that they did do that testing at Virginia Tech, and they took the time and money to really do the research and see, how this headgear would compete against others. And that's an admirable thing. I can say that's pretty cool to see that, because typically you don't see that with boxing equipment, right? We just, it's kind of a big copycat business. Everyone makes their own, and then somebody else makes one just like theirs, and someone else copies them, and another person copies them, and then they just put their logo on it. So everybody does it, right? So it's kind of a copycat business. But I do like the fact that they did go in and try to figure out, okay, what can we do to make the headgear not only slimmer and lighter, but just as protective? And I think the big thing is, if you're going to make it slimmer and you're going to reduce the amount of foam on here, you're essentially saying to yourself, okay, well, if I do that, how do I retain the level of, I guess, shock absorption that I would have if I had the same amount of padding as like a Winning or a Reyes headgear? So I think they did a really good job overall. I think the big takeaway from this is, if you're looking for something that is lighter, slimmer, has great vision, is very comfortable, then this is definitely a great choice. I mean, I can't deny the fact that it's a very comfortable headgear. I feel that the vision is good. I love the liner. It's just like my Phenom one. I like the fact that they use lace-ups instead of Velcro for the back and the top. The chin position is good. Oh, one big thing I was going to say, and I almost forgot, is I wish there was some type of some type of little piece right here that I can put the chin strap to excess, because I'm going to end up trimming this off. But you can see right here, there's just so much excess that hangs off. I feel like there should be like a little leather loop here that the excess chin strap can be pushed into, so it doesn't just dangle while you're wearing it. So just little details like that I feel like can be improved. But overall, I mean, the quality on here is solid. Yeah, if you're looking for something that you need good vision, is comfortable, lightweight, you're going to be really hard pressed to find something like this. And of course, there are some drawbacks, like I mentioned earlier. Aesthetically, it might not be as pleasing as others. At the price point of $259, it is expensive, I will say that. But again, you have to kind of weigh the variables if you're looking at, you know, obviously winning, phenom, you know, everything is inflated now, right? Prices of a lot of headgears are, you know, $100, $200, $300, $400, just depending on what brand you're going with. I still think it's a little bit on the high side at $259 for a headgear. But I can also see the reason why. I mean, you have this kind of this technology, the weight reduction that's built into it. So if you're somebody that wants to use your defense more, that you put a lot more emphasis on visibility and moving your head movement, then this definitely would be a good choice for you. So if you guys have any questions or comments, make sure you guys put them down below. I'll put the link in the description box where you can find this Hit and Move Precision headgear, and I'll see you guys later.